So coming up now, we have the presentation of the Maya Entertainment Creation Suite. This is the suite of tools all put into one package for one user so that you have the flexibility to bounce between, say, Maya, Motion Builder, Mudbox, Softimage, bounce around and use whatever tool you feel will get that particular part of the job done fastest. You're going to see some of our clients later on today which actually are taking advantage of these kinds of workflows where they allow the artist to use whatever tool they need to use, whether they're modeling, animating, rendering, whatever. They can bounce around. So Craig's going to show you some of the new features that have come in with 2012 that allow you to do a much more fluid motion between one product to another. No more of this process of let's save an FBX, load an FBX. Now it's click a button and it happens. So Craig, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Sean. The first thing we're going to start with here is we're going to take a look at a very cool character, courtesy of Eidos Montreal. This is the Jensen character, the Jensen Commando from Deus Ex Human Revolution, and they were very generous to give us some data to work with in our demos. The first thing I'm going to do is take a look at a really interesting new feature within Mudbox and with Maya that we can take advantage of this one-click workflow. So I'm in Mudbox 2012, which is part of the Entertainment Creation Suite here. So I can use this as a tool to help out Maya here with a modeling workflow. So this character that we have right here, I'm just going to display the wireframe of him here. And we'll just deselect him. You can see that he's very dense. So this is actually a very dense model here. It's at 2.6 million polys, and there are no levels of subdivision. So this is level 0. This is all we have. We're stuck with this. So if this is the case, and we have this, and we happen to have a couple of paint layers, we have a diffuse map on here, a spec map, and a basic normal map. But we might want to take this further, change the mesh, augment the topology on this, and sculpt up some more details, maybe some wrinkles, some effects on the little vest, and some rivets, and things like that. So the way we can work with this now in Mudbox is that we can select the model, and underneath mesh, we have this handy little rebuild subdivision level. So if I click that, the bottom left-hand corner, you're going to see that it's calculating and subdividing and trying to figure out how far it can go down and build lower levels of subdivision. And we'll get this handy little heads-up display here on the right. And it's telling me it's found 4 lower levels of subdivision. So the magic there is I can start stepping down, and it's going to tell us our feedback in the top right corner as to what we have in our lower levels. And I'm getting right down from 2.6 million. We have a base now of 19,000 polys. So what can we do with this? Well, with the one-click workflow to Maya, I can actually take this mesh and start to completely change the topology while preserving that in Mudbox. So how does that work? So I'm going to grab the model here. I'm selecting the model with the hotbox here in Mudbox. And I'm just going to go down here. You can see under the File menu in Mudbox, we have Send to Maya, Send to Max, Send to Softimage. And I can work this way with all of the products here. So I can just do this one click. So what I'm going to do is I have a current scene open now in Maya. If I send selected as a new scene, it'll actually open Maya 2012 for me. So I'm going to add selected to current scene. So we'll fire that right into Maya. And if you look in the bottom corner, this is the feedback here. Both corners are doing something interesting. This is showing me that it's exporting the mesh. It's calculating everything to do with the mesh here, including texture maps. It's going to bring that into Maya. It's going to set it up. Now, in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see a status bar as to what's happening with our update. It's connected over to Maya right now, and we can jump over to Maya here. And let's just wait for Maya to load this up. Here we go. Now, the interesting thing that's happening here is the character has come directly over from Mudbox exactly as that base mesh was. So if we go in and we display the wireframe on the shaded model, exact same mesh, but the interesting thing as well to note here is that all of the textures came over. And not just simple textures here. This character is actually laid out in UV tiles. So he has about 9 UV tiles on him here, and these are the associated maps. And the other interesting thing to note here, if we zoom in on one of these areas here, it's bringing in all of those texture maps there. So we have a little reflectivity map, a little reflection map that's hooking right up into the shader. It's bringing over a spec map, it's bringing over the diffuse map, and that simple normal map that we want to change and add more detail to later. So what we can do with this character now is start to change the topology on this. So if we take a look at the mesh as to what we got from the rebuilt subdivision levels, you can see that the geometry is not completely uniform. So we can start to change that. I can grab an edge on here, and I can start to do some interesting things like we'll insert an edge loop into here. Go in there, we can just bring an edge loop in there, maybe bring one over there. If I quit right out of that tool, double click on the edge loops, and then use my slide edge tool, I can shift middle click and start to taper that area in maybe a little bit just along the ankles. And you can see up here that we have these edge loops here. We can balance these out again just by using the same tool. Let's just slide these down, maybe balance them out a little bit. Same thing on the other side. We're changing the overall flow of the geometry as well as adding to it. Now the other interesting thing about this workflow with Mudbox is that I can sculpt up all my blend shapes and layers, sculpt layers, and I can set that to fire that right over to Maya and bring all of those sculpt layers set up as blend shapes, and it'll actually go ahead and set those blend shapes up for you, which is really nice. So we grab an edge here. Let's just take a look at inserting another edge loop here. If we want to do some blend shapes in there, if we wanted to do that, we can add maybe another edge loop in here, and we come down to this area on the wrist. And let's do the same thing. Let's actually, let's actually insert some more edge loops and taper these in here a bit. So I'm going to grab these edge loops in here. I'm just going to start to taper those in as well. Maybe taper this one in a little bit. There we go. We can work with that. Now another interesting thing on this character, you can see it has these little recesses from the geometry that the guys over at Autodesk Montreal have set up on this character. And these little recesses are to hold little pockets of other pieces of geometry. So we want to add one of those right here. So let's quickly do that and take advantage of some of the new modeling tools in Maya 2012 as well. So I'm going to change this by actually just deleting away some of these edges here. And if I jump into my, I'm going to grab an edge. I'm going to jump into the new interactive split tool. So if I grab that tool right there, let's actually take a look at, we grab the old split tool. We still have that available in there with the click, but I'm going to work with the interactive split tool. And you can see we have a different menu set. And the way this works now is we have all these different abilities to magnet or to snap to different points. We can snap to existing vertices and also midpoints on the edge. So very handy, very quick way to start working with that. So let's start subdividing this, but I'm going to, or start splitting the mesh up. But I'm going to do something different here. I'm going to snap to this vertex here, and I'm actually going to, you can see how it snaps to the edge points and the midpoints, the vertices, but I'm going to turn off constrain to edges, and I'm actually going to do something that wasn't previously available. I'm actually splitting based off of the face. So I just split that mesh just directly onto the face, and then I can grab that tool again, and I can start to maybe let's snap some of these points in here, split this up a little bit more. Actually, I'm going to take this guy, put him to here, and let's just get rid of this little edge here and split it directly across into that, snap to that mid-edge point and right across. And then if we grab these faces in here, and if I just click my shift right click, I'm going to go to extrude face. You'll see something else that's new in Maya 2012. We get this little heads up display for our extrusions here. So I can use the old way. I can just grab the manipulators. I can set my parameters in the channel box. But what I want to do here is actually start to use this heads up display to dial in a bit of thickness on there. And then I can taper that with the offset. And I can set my divisions on the fly here as well. So that's fine for what we want to do here. Let's get back over to Mudbox. So we changed the geometry here a little bit, and what we want to do is send this back to Mudbox and see what's going to happen with that. So I can keep my model selected. We have this live connection you can see in the bottom right-hand corner connected to Mudbox. And what I want to do with my send to Mudbox here, you can also see send to Softimage Motion Builder. I want to actually update the current scene that we're already working with and connected. So I'm going to hit that update. It's going to bring it back into Mudbox, and it's going to ask me how I want to transfer these details over. It wants to look at an envelope here to do that. So I'm going to just set a couple of the settings here. If I had joint weighting on this, I can transfer that joint weighting right over there as well. So I'm just going to adjust the envelope down to about 0.2, and I'm going to import that mesh. It's going to figure out the difference here. It's not actually importing a new mesh. It's actually transferring the details of that mesh that we've changed here onto this mesh that we were already working with here in Mudbox. So let that calculate over. And then what we can do once we have all of these changes over here, let's take a look and see how the changes have come in. It's going to, by default, bring it right back to the top subdivision level. So you can see our dense mesh there. We'll turn off the wireframe, and we can start to climb down our levels of subdivision here. And the interesting thing is you can notice that all of those changes I did have carried right over in the existing subdivision levels. I changed the topology in Maya, and it's brought that right over to Mudbox. There's our changes we made down the edges here. We balanced out some edges down here, and we started to extrude and cut in some different polys here. It's brought that right over without any issue. We've also added an edge loop around the mouth. That's in there. And we started to taper the wrist. So that came right over really nice. Now the interesting thing is the connection is still live. The textures are still live. We can change that on the fly and update that into Maya. So there's the Maya Mudbox, a quick overview of that workflow in there. Let's jump into Maya and take a look at something different here. I'm actually just going to shut down Mudbox in here. And I'm going to just hide this guy away. We don't need him right now. So we'll hide him away, and let's jump to our perspective camera, and then what we'll do is bring up an existing scene that we have here. We'll turn this off. Now I'm actually using the new Viewport 2.0 within Maya here as well. So we'll turn that off. So you can see in Viewport 2.0 looks a lot nicer than what we've had here previously. I'm going to turn the shadows on there as well, and you can see that we get these nice render effects in the viewport here. So what we want to work with this guy here is some animation settings. So a couple very cool things that are available in Maya. I'm going to take this guy and set him up for full body IK. I'm going to set him up using our human IK system here. We have this new characterization tool that's built right into Maya. And the interesting thing is this is the exact same tool that we have in Motion Builder, no different. So let's see how that works here. I can start to take a bone. I'm going to just double click on the upper left arm on here and swipe into the viewport in Maya. And you'll see that that's updated there and it's selected this. Green means we're okay, everything's good. This little stop sign's telling us we can't go anywhere with it yet. It needs more bones set up for it. So that's going to be our little indicator. It'll give us warnings. It'll give us the green go ahead. It'll give us a yellow warning there as well. And you'll notice it's also mirrored it across because I have mirroring set in my HIK setup. So now that I have some bones selected, I can actually speed up the process here and use an existing template by matching the names on there. So in Maya, it actually defaults. We have an HIK default template, we have a cat template, and we have a biped template. So you can work this directly through Motion Builder and with 3ds Max as well. So with this here, I'm going to grab an existing template that we have from for the IDOS setup here. So if I just click that, it's going to grab all the bones that I want. But it's going to give me this little heads up warning. It's saying that the right arm and left arm is not happy with the fact that they're down from the T-pose. So no problem. What we can do is grab this, and it's going to give me a live feedback over there. We can, let's just bring these up to the T-pose here a little bit and keep this guy. There we go. The green little bubbles popped on. Everything's happy. That's fine. I could have left it as was down there and continued on, but we like happiness here, Sean. So we're going to just leave that the way it is. And then what we can do is start to set a control rig onto this character. So I'm going to lock this character off. And I'm going to go in and add an existing, or I'm going to create a control rig onto this character. And now what you can do is you can see that we have a full control rig available in here. If I jump into my character tool, it's going to give me this nice character map of all the joints available in here. I'm working with the joints. I'm going to turn those off. And I have my rig display. There's a bunch of different displays. We can display them as boxes, as sticks, and balls. But I'm just going to use the kind of curve default wire setup in here. And what's going to happen here, if I grab one of these end effectors and I start to move this around, I'm only affecting that body part right now. But if I turn on the full body system here, so if I go back there, you see that I'm highlighting only that effector right now on the wrist. And it's also interesting to note that I'm working with IK and FK on the fly here. So I can start to key both of these, right? I can start to do my rotates and translates all in the same system. So if I jump to full body here, you see that everything highlights. I'm now keying at the full body level. And the difference with that is if I grab this character, he's fully reacting to what's happening in there. And we can do a couple of other things with that. We can start to pin some of these areas here. So I can start to pin the translates and rotates right in this character control window, or I can right click on there and I can say pin both, rotate and translate. So I'm doing that. And if we start to grab some of these areas on the model, you see that that's pinned in space. That's not moving. So very handy for grabbing objects, for climbing objects. We can just keep pinning and keying those off or blending between those pins there if we want to. So now let's take a look at how we can start to use this character to add some animation to it. There's a bunch of things we can do here in Maya, but with Motion Builder, it adds an additional level of power for animation here. So I'm just going to grab a simple area on this guy here, and I'm going to go to my File menu, Send to Motion Builder. I have a current scene available. I have this exact same scene open in there. So I'm just going to add to current scene this character over here. So it's on the bottom corner here again. We're going to see the updates happen in here. Just get rid of that window. It's going to send it over to our Motion Builder setup, and here we have the connected to Maya, and now our character has come right over here into Motion Builder. So the first thing to note that we're getting here is that exact same window. So there's the character controls window, exactly the same. It's the same technology, the same tool in both packages here. So that's nice that I can take this in here seamlessly, and I'm working with the same tools. Nothing's different. Characterization tool is exactly the same, and the templates, of course, are exactly the same. I can create one in Motion Builder or Maya, and I can use them in both places here. So with this one here, we can start to do something here. Let's take a look at, first of all, with our full body IK on here. If I just move this guy, just to illustrate the point that we still have that live connection there, and then I go back over to Maya here, and I say, update current scene, jump back to Maya, and it's going to snap over to that little pose that I was just playing with there. So that's all fine and dandy, but let's do something a little more with this here. So with this character here, I'm going to just throw some animation into the scene. So I'm just going to do a merge here. I'll take some there. We'll bring that in. It's dropping the skeleton in, and if I hit play on that, that skeleton's just kind of running around in the scene right now, and that's fine. But what I want to do is add that information, that data, that animation data, to my control rig that I've set up rather quickly in Maya and brought over to Motion Builder here. So we can do that by our character control window. I can go to the source, and I can actually bring it right down to this run turn animation here. And what's going to happen is it's going to drive that animation data into that character there now. So what are we getting here? If we press play, we'll see that our character is now responding. We have another character that we can grab some animation from here as well. So I've got this character here. He's running, and he's doing a couple of things there. And we can start to change this or work with this here. Let's grab one of the controls on our character. Actually, what I'm going to do is bake all of this animation to this, and then let's change this with an animation layer here. So what I can do is go to my control rig. We have a bake or plot section there, and then I'm going to bake the animation to the rig on there. So now that animation's baked right over to the rig. Now we're working back with our rig on here, and you can see that I have all my rig controls back. So we'll just play this guy through, and we can start to do, just to illustrate the point of the power of the connection here with Motion Builder and Maya to help us out over in Maya. I can just grab some of the animation layers here. I'm going to grab that head effector there, and I'm going to bring that into a new layer. And then as he's running, let's drop a simple key down onto that. So what we can actually do is start to drop down keyframes onto there. And then let's maybe rotate this guy around a bit. Maybe have him look over us. Drop a key in there, and we'll see that we have that simple little motion now. He's just turning his head as he's coming towards us there. So this animation layer here, I'm just going to rename it. We'll just call it head turn. And then what we can do now is update this over to Maya. So let's just go back into Maya here. We have that live connection. It's important to note what's happening here when I'm updating, okay? We're not doing any kind of system where we're always replacing. We can replace, we can add to, but we always have this live connection. I'm not taking the whole rig and geometry and throwing that in and throwing the other one out. I'm always working live with that. So that's important to note. We can change topology, we can change textures, we can change animation, we can change the rig, and it's always going to update with all these different packages we're working with. Very powerful workflow there in that regard. So what we have now is that animation is right here in Maya, and including our little head turn that we throw in there at the end. So where are we here? We'll just scroll across. There he is doing his little head turn. So if we jump into our animation layers as well, the animation layer system in Motion Builder is the exact same with Maya. There's our head turn thing that I've improperly spelled there as well, but that'll do. So we're not here to talk about spelling or grammar here, are we? So we're going to just leave that. And then we can work with this here. I can start to change that animation layer, add to it, and keep going back and forth with Motion Builder on here. So one last thing we want to take a look at with this Motion Builder workflow is another really interesting thing. Underneath the Animate menu, we actually have this ability to create an editable motion trail. So I'm going to do something really quick here. I'm going to set my pre-frame. We'll leave it at about 12 frames, and the post on this guy here about 12 frames. And if I create that motion trail, I'm just going to make sure that we are showing our motion trails. I'll turn that on. It's going to create this right in the viewport. And this is handy because we can do a couple of things with this. I'm going to bring my graph editor up here on the bottom. And we can start to edit the curves in the graph editor, but we can also start to edit some of the information with the animation here directly in the viewport here as well. So you can see that it's kind of snaking along. I've set that pre and post 12 frames. I can set that to however many I want. I just want to see that amount flying along there with it. And then what we can do with this is we can start to change some of the keyframes here. So I'm going to add a whole new animation layer based off of that little hip effector that I'm working with there. I'm now working in that, And let's start to key some of this here. We'll do something really quick on it there. I'm just going to drop a key down. And then if we bring in another key on there as well, you can see I've dropped 2 keyframes down, and let's drop one in here in the middle. And now what we can do with this is, as we're playing it back, I can of course edit this in the graph editor, but I can actually go live within the viewport, and I can start to change that trajectory there. So I'm going to make his hips kind of sway over a little bit between those frames. So I'm now working with my animation data as a motion trail within the viewport. And the nice thing as well is I have this on an animation layer, so I can blend that. I can blend the weighting of that live in here, or I can continue to add it. I can even get rid of it. I can solo it out or hide it away or keep with it. And this will translate right over to Motion Builder, all of that animation that I've changed here. It's also important to note that with all of our products now, if you go underneath the view in the graph editor, we have the classic toolbar here in Maya, so you can still work with all of these tools that exist across the top here within the graph editor, but I can now go to a unified graph editor. This is important to note. It's the exact same graph editor that's available in Motion Builder. Max has it as well, Soft as well. We can work with the same unified graph editor so that we're all familiar with the exact same settings. And of course, we can work with our classic settings in all of those applications as well. So now we're going to take a look at a last workflow here, and that is the power of Softimage with its ICE workflow. We'll take a look at something we can do over there. So let's bring our viewport up. I'm actually just going to jump back to my display layers here, and we'll set this guy into here. I'm going to bring this little pad up. I'm going to hide all of these guys out of here for right now. Actually, we'll just get rid of this. Come back to viewport 2.0 in here, and I'm actually going to work with this out in this area here, so I'll just frame this up like that. That's fine. There we go. So now what we're going to do is if we jump over to Softimage, we have a couple of interesting things here. We have this little spaceship hovercraft vehicle type thing from our scene set up in Maya, the one we're working with in Motion Builder, and what we can do is start to add some simple effects to this here. So just to illustrate the point here quickly, we have some simple little kind of fire particles and smoke trails. And what it is these objects represent collision objects for our scene within Maya. So we can bring this guy in. You see he kind of smashes into the environment. Let's deselect everything there so we can see a little better. Just kind of smashes into that dome, and he starts to kind of smoke, and we're working with the particles here within ice that we can create some smoke or some fire. But the power of this here within ice, you can see that the ice flow here, we can just start to change this really quickly. I'm using a basic fire emitter here. There are a bunch of presets in here that we have. And then what I can do with this that's really nice now is we have this system set up between ice, between Softimage, specifically into Maya. We have this ice flow set up in here. So I'm just going to send that whole thing right over there. You'll see that we have send to Maya. I also notice while I'm in here at Soft, we have send to Max. We also have send to Mudbox as well, right? So we can start to texture paint, sculpt, rebuild topology live on the flow, just like we were doing here in Maya earlier. So I'm going to send this to Maya, and I'm actually going to add it to that current Maya scene. So let's do this. I'm going to send the whole thing over. It's going to calculate out that data, caching all the files here. What it's doing right now is it's driving out a cache of the existing particles, the animation on that ship. It's going to bring it over to Maya, but I'm not just limited to those cache files. I can start to drive more particles using Nucleus within Maya. So let's cache that out and let it bring it right over to Maya. Here it is. So it's reading it in. Just going to get rid of these collision objects here. And here is our little simple plane, our little spaceport. And now we have, I'm just going to turn my lighting back into this. And we have our little, I got to show. There, we'll show everything in there. There we go. And there are particles that have come live right over from Softimage. And now the cool thing is, again, we can change this, right? We can keep changing this and working with this back and forth from Soft. Nice thing as well is I can grab these and I can set this to come out as a Nucleus node, so I can add more to this in the scene. And of course, these particles are represented as spheres. I can change that in here as well, start to render it as a true fire and smoke effect that we want in here. But for the viewport here, this will do for now. So that is a pretty quick overview of Maya working in conjunction with Mudbox, Motion Builder, and Softimage, and the one-click workflow. You can see how powerful it is. We're constantly updating and adding more to it. It's only getting more powerful, and it's incredibly fast workflow right now. So thank you for your time.